Well, hello. Welcome back to Even More News, the first, the only news podcast. And might I add, Happy New Year. Oh, yes, and I'm Katie Stoll. Woof. It's been a few weeks.
Happy New Year. Thank you for introducing the show. I am Cody. The end. Johnston. Dang. Oh, we're doing great.
We're dusting the dust off, folks. Things are cooking, and we've got a great guest. Our friend, return guest. Oh, gosh, I'm so good at intros.
Nailing it.
It's Kaveh. Kaveh
returning
Hoda. Welcome.
Champ.
Returning
Kaveh.
champion.
What a great and uneventful couple of weeks.
Ooh,
this is
nothing's going on.
Fantastic time to come on the show. I'm so glad I could be the person you brought on.
Glad to have you. We're just going to talk about like TV, what you've been watching, stuff like that. So,
Oh, that would be so
Hear about
good.
your holidays.
yeah.
Yeah.
We're so far
yeah.
past the holidays. I was going to talk about holidays and chit chat. We can, but there is a lot going on.
New Year's holiday. I don't know.
Oh my God, this is it. Okay, Friday, January 10th, National Shareholders Day.
Hell yeah. Got them.
Think of the shareholders.
We gotta.
Honor them. Honor those shareholders.
This is like when you were a kid and you were like, when's Kids Day? And they're like, every day is Kids Day, your parents. Every day is
Yeah.
National
Every day is
Shareholders
Shareholders
Day
Day.
in this country.
I don't really have fun bits for this.
God. National Shareholders Day is an American holiday observed on January 10th each year. No, it's not. It is not celebrated.
No, don't read the thing, Cody. There's, there's
I'm
nothing there.
just like, what could
This
they
one's
possibly?
better. Saturday, January 11th, Learn Your Name in Morse Code Day. Maybe it's helpful. I'd rather learn how to say help.
Yeah, if I am trying to like do Morse code with my name, someone's going to see it that doesn't know me and be even more confused.
Yeah.
They're going to be like, it keeps coming out as Kaveh. Maybe they mean comment? Maybe they mean call me? What are they trying to say? It wouldn't help me in any way.
That's a really good point.
Unless it happened to be like a Farsi fluent, Morse code translator. So I'm going to skip
If it
that holiday.
happened to
Get
be-
on that. Make
yeah,
that app.
I think part of this is that you need to teach someone else your name in Morse code too, so that they know what you're
Then
saying.
they know, yeah.
I gave my nephew a little kid's Morse code thing.
Oh, so he can learn.
I don't know. It was a cute toy. He's a little outdoor guy. I'm like, look, you can do Morse code, and it's a flashlight, and it changes to red or green.
Kids love secret stuff. Things
Yeah.
that are like secrets.
That's true. Spy stuff.
Something that'll
Yeah.
break
Exactly.
really easily and
Yeah.
be a waste of $20, but entertained him for an afternoon. Great.
That's parenthood. Just a series of
That's anthood.
entertain. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's probably anything revolving around kids, just trying to entertain them
Yeah.
long enough to get
It's daycare.
something done.
Well, we are all distracted because it's been quite a week. We had so many things prepared to discuss with you guys, so much to catch up on. And we're going to do our best to get to that. But if any of you have not heard, it would be surprising, but if you have not heard,
Trump got
LA
reelected.
Trump got reelected and
Yeah.
LA is burning. Yeah.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
That checks out that sequence of events.
yeah.
Events have consequences. Trump was elected and now LA's burning.
Unrelated events, but still
Probably.
both one a metaphorical fire and one a real one. Lots of fires in LA, I guess is the point.
So that's kind of been all consuming for at least Jonathan, Cody, and I this week. Heads up, we will not be releasing a video next week. We were supposed to. We shoot on Wednesdays, and that's when the chaos really hit. The fires broke out Tuesday, and then Wednesday, it just started to really hit home. It was unsafe for people to drive. It was unsafe for Cody to stay in the city. So he's safe. I'm not
Yeah,
in the
I'm
mountains.
safe.
Jonathan's safe. But we did not shoot our episode for next week. So sorry.
There you go.
So
I don't know what to say.
I haven't had a chance to ask you guys yet because we just started this like Zoom call and we started recording. But I mean, and I know this is sort of a dumb question, but how are you guys? You have family. You're there in LA, and in Katie, I know you have a lot of connections in LA. I mean,
Yeah.
how are you
I'm
guys
devastated
doing?
personally. I'm safe and lucky. I'm not devastated in terms of the effects on my own life, but except to see, Yeah, the places that we have loved for the majority of my 20s and 30s. And I still consider myself a part-time resident of Los Angeles, but just destroyed. And more importantly, so many people I love have lost everything. And I'm inspired by people already getting to work organizing and trying to directly reach people who have been affected. But the danger is so far from over. The two major fires are 0% contained, and there are more Santa Ana winds coming today, and not as strong. They're not forecast to be hurricane force winds this time, but it's the Santa Ana wind. It's something that I think we all fires are not uncommon in the Los Angeles area, but what none of us have ever experienced is a fire that is actually in an urban area that is creeping through majorly populated regions. And it's something that that it can happen, and it's hard to believe actually does. And so I think that's what everybody's reeling from. I mean, entire communities are just gone. Historic properties. I keep seeing this shared. I'm not sure if anybody else has variations of this sentiment. When people lose all this stuff, it's hard to resist the urge to want to make it better somehow by saying it's just things that least you have your life. And you're right, it is just things. And the most important is that you get out and you can rebuild and live and continue. But it's so much more than that. Yeah, you can replace those things, but there's history to it. But then just these historic regions of Los Angeles that have, just so much history, architectural, historical preservation sites gone. It's culture. It's just a lot to unpack. And I think everybody's grieving and still trying to figure out what comes next, even because we haven't gotten through this part. I say we. I'm not there. Reiterate that. But
yeah, everything you said. It's very devastating is the right word. It's very heartbreaking. I left. I had to go for various reasons from the Eaton fire area. It was very. There's this. What is this? This quote. I forget where it's from. Climate change will, and we'll talk about the reasons. It's not just climate change. Sorry, folks. Climate change will manifest as a series of disasters viewed through phones with footage that gets closer and closer to where you live until you're the one filming it. It's very surreal, being smelling the smoke and seeing the ash fall like in your yard, in your neighborhood. I was there yesterday with like a bunch of neighbors as they're packing up and stuff, and it's just very, very surreal. And like Katie, you're saying, like it's just stuff, but it's not just stuff. It is like, there are these things and these memories that like you can hold on to for hopefully a long time, but once those things are gone, that memory starts to fade too. And just sort of like going through and being like, should we grab this? Should we grab this? Like you like, okay, yourself, kids, pets, those are the things that you go
important
for.
Documents.
And, right. Like, exactly. But then you're like, this, this, we had this. Like, you're kind of like cycling through like all these things as fast as you can to get out.
So this is a good jumping off point to talk about some of this stuff and not get too, because there's other things to talk about that's not just California related.
Yeah. If I might though, I mean, it's a California thing, but just like Cody said, I mean, it's gonna eventually, this is the kind of thing that is going to affect most of the world. You know, I think it really is. I think it's totally relevant, and I'm so sorry you guys are going through it.
You're right. It is going to affect everybody in all of it. I mean, one of the topics I want to talk about always, and will come up in this, is just, insurance. There's people that have house. If you own your home and you have home insurance, then that's going to be an incredibly dicey thing to navigate. I don't even know what that's going to look like. The amount of money that needs to be paid out.
And billions and billions of dollars.
Billions and billions. But beside that, there are people that don't own their homes. There are just people that are renting who have also lost everything, and they are not going to get an insurance payout unless they've got renter's insurance. Maybe they do. It's so when you think about it like that, and we're also looking at the landscape of Los Angeles, the reality is that so many people have been out of work for a couple years between strikes, changes in the industry, tax credits elsewhere, business moving out of state. So people are at the bottom of the barrel as is. And then dealing with this, or, we've talked about this with other disasters, the cost in evacuating.
Climate
if you don't
change.
have family.
Mass displacement, even if it's these neighborhoods.
Yeah, this climate change and the increasing natural disasters and the increasing cost of the natural disasters may influence how we think about accruing wealth in this country, because for my whole life, for decades, it's been you aspire to own your home. You want to buy a house. You work toward that for years, and that's how, because that price goes up, that's how you accrue wealth. And if so many homes in the country become hard to insure, uninsurable, that's not going to be a way that people get up into the middle class anymore.
Yeah. Is it even the right? But I'll counter that, because I had this conversation last night too. Even if you choose to rent and, use your money in different ways to save, invest, become one of those shareholders, I don't know. Someone's got to be the landlord. You're renting from somebody, so somebody owns that house. So while I agree with that, this issue of insurance is ever present and very real, not just in California, everywhere. There are reports. I don't know. One of the things we want to talk about, especially in conjunction with other news, is misinformation. There's a lot of stuff being said about the fires and blame being placed that might be true, might be partly true, might not be true. And it's not super helpful right now it is vitally important to have honest conversations about it, but this goes beyond partisan. I don't give a fuck how you vote. This goes beyond that. But there's this could be misinformation. I don't know. But there are lots of reports about people losing their home insurance within the last few weeks and not even having time to shop around. Not that they'd be able to. And I don't know how that works out, because you do have to have insurance to have a mortgage. I'm not sure the legality of that. I have a guess that some of these people might have owned their homes for decades, which also suggests that they aren't necessarily the rich people that you think they are in the Palisades that bought a $20 million house. No, they've had this home for generations or something. And I have a suspicion that those are probably more likely to be the people that lost their insurance, but we're going to find more information out. But what happens now? If you can't insure a property, how do you sell it? Not that should be the main, but if that's what you're caring about, the housing market or whatever, what do we do?
I mean, it's like we said in our housing episode from several years ago, there are just incentives going in opposite directions. As soon as you become a homeowner, you now have an incentive to want the housing market to go up, to have housing prices increase. Whereas a few months before, when you were a renter, you wanted the opposite, right? You wanted housing prices to be low, so your rent was low, or so you could buy a home while home prices were low. I don't know how we get out of a system where housing is a commodity, right? How we move to housing being a human right. But it's clear that by doing so, we have pit Americans against each other. Homeowners insurance crisis, which is a real crisis, it's going to affect everyone because it impacts the entire market, the entire how we go about it, because everyone needs housing.
Yeah.
Right?
You
it's
start
almost
to pull
like it
that
should be
thread.
a human right.
So, a lot of questions that remain to be seen as to how this specifically shakes out. But in my mind, give me anybody talking about this issue. Give me a politician, give me plans, give us a national conversation, because ignoring it isn't going to make, it's just pushing it down.
Unfortunately, a national conversation will not help either.
Right. I mean, look,
I
Trump
know.
has been very quickly making this a political, and there are some politics to be discussed with it, but he's using this strictly for scoring points against California liberals and Gavin Newsom and just
Gavin Newscum.
Yeah. Is that his new thing?
Gavin Newscum.
Yeah. Never mind.
We would be having a tragedy if with a conservative governor, Democrat, everything in between, we'd have a tragedy here. This is so much bigger than a political party. It's so much bigger than one decision or another. This is a lot of
and a lot of the decisions,
compounded.
right? But if this was slightly different, if this was slightly different, this was slightly different, it would still be devastating. There's degrees of devastation, but to instantly turn it into, and then I just see so many like right-wing accounts like, oh, this isn't a horror movie, this is real life, and like videos of like Palisades burning down and stuff. It's like, don't you famously like hate these people? Like, don't you have utter contempt for every single person who lives in California? But you need to get your little points off to like, oh, we're so bad for these people.
So many weird little graphics like, oh, the Palisades voted this way. Fuck the right out of here. What are you
Also, like, not every neighborhood in Los Angeles votes the same way.
Right.
No.
Wealthier communities are much more likely to vote differently than those of us who live, not to like Squid Game this whole thing, but those of us who live down here. And not that it should matter. Like I've lived in this city for 25 years. I'm very attached to it. I have a lot of romanticism about like LA and stuff. If I'm at a game and the Dodgers win, I want to sing I love LA and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So to see Malibu burning doesn't make me feel good because many of the people who live in Malibu are very wealthy. And the fact that some of them may have voted for Trump does not make me happy about it or to think that they deserve it. Even if they agree, even if they believe like, if only Gavin Newsom had signed the water restoration declaration, whatever that is.
Which isn't a thing. That's one of the many lies that Trump has been, his lies are always annoying, but when he does these obvious ones about California, in which I live, and talks about daily blackouts, or it's not true, and he talks about things like how Newsom wouldn't sign this declaration, which is not a thing, or when he says that FEMA has no money in it because Biden didn't put money in, that's not true. There's at least like $27 billion in there. I mean, that may not be enough, but it's not nothing. And all these little things that he does about California, I hate that we're a target. And I hate that this could be even worse if he were actually actively the president right now. I mean, I don't know what he would do to hold Newsom to account, quote unquote, from him, but it would only be worse. And it's going to keep happening, which is also really troubling.
That's something that, I care if you believe in climate change. But at the end of the day, what I really care about is, well, let's just all agree that these things are happening and we need to do something about it. I don't need you to, but that to me looks like infrastructure. That to me looks like really having serious conversation about forest management, though this isn't necessarily the forest, which is a different conversation entirely. This is an urban area that's very lush. But what is your defensible space conversation? What are we doing about roads to make sure people are safe getting out? Communications so that people have access to information in emergency. What are we doing in a different situation? It's also confusing because there's so much misinformation, but water storage, rain capture to best utilize our water. We did release a lot of water from dams during heavy water years because they were going to break and flood communities. But what do we do with this water? How about we put, there are conversations, again, not partisan. It doesn't help if you're saying it's this guy's fault, vote for me. Fuck off. Fuck all the way off. That's not true. Gavin Newsom protected some fish, which is also important. Donald Trump is going to make it look like Gavin Newsom was ignoring Southern California. No. Southern California gets their water from Northern California, almost all of it.
Not saving those fish wasn't going to make this not a problem. Like, it's not like, oh, we saved so many. Yeah.
It's not the water. It's the dry brush. It's all that. It's the heat.
It's the dry brush.
Wind. that's what caused it. And I know, and we're going to, I'm sure, learn more about this in the coming days. And they talk about like the Palisades not having water, but it seems like that's more of an infrastructure problem with how they had the water, but getting it there because of pressure issues as it goes over the
and it was
hills
a temporary problem.
And that's
Right.
a really good thing to bring up, Kaveh, that I wanted to highlight again in this misinformation. A lot of accounts and people talking about the fire hydrants being out of water. That's not accurate. Yes, they're emptying it. They couldn't refill, from what I understand. And again, more information will come out. But from what I understand, this was some hydrants they couldn't refill because of the high winds. The same reason that they couldn't do water drops during the high winds. It wasn't safe. Technically impossible. So, calm down. Think before sharing something that is...
Okay, but End Wokeness told me that the fire hydrants did DEI. And I think
they did the DEI? Well, that's a different story entirely,
So I think,
Cody.
okay. As long as we're on the same page.
Those
They're not just
if
red
you've seen those
anymore.
hydrants,
Yeah.
they're incredibly LGBT plus 3.
No, they're
Have you seen
shoving
them?
it down our throats. It's
Yeah, they're
so-
shoving those fire hydrants are shoving DEI down our throats. No, of course that stuff is so incredibly stupid, and I wish nobody would fall for it. And I think, like, I mean, with everyone kissing the ring over the last few weeks, and now
Ooh.
Zuckerberg this week is not doing fact checking on Facebook anymore. And doing
Sorry,
a
sir. It
community
will
notes
never happen
system.
again, sir.
Perfect time.
God.
Perfect
Right.
time.
Seems like everyone should understand that the End Wokeness account saying that it's DEI's fault or whatever is very, very stupid. But you have to put yourself in the mind of a boomer who uses Facebook exclusively to connect to friends.
Don't make me do that. Don't make me put myself there. It's a
No,
dark
I'm not saying
place.
you. I'm not saying
do
you.
it. I
No,
can't-
no.
I can't put myself in that position. I just can't bring myself to think that way.
Imagine.
We were talking before the show about how there were even things that we could not verify, and we go to primary sources and look at it and try to debate it. We don't have to get into the LA Fire Department's budget
Right,
and
that one.
whether it increased or decreased, but there's like, it is very, very hard to find out because the reporters who would be telling you these things are stretched very thin right now. Because there's fewer of them than there used to be, and they're all standing in harm's way in Altadena or Pacific Palisades reporting. And then it's someone like me at a desk who's trying to figure it out, going through budget documents, trying to get to the bottom of things in this completely overloaded information environment that is dictating what members of Congress will be putting up for a vote in a couple weeks, right? They might put up the no DEI and fire hydrants bill in a couple weeks, or no sending fire equipment to Ukraine because that depleted the fire department's
surplus of fire equipment.
Right. Like,
That
and I know we're blending pieces of misinformation here, swimming
But-
upstream like the
Yeah.
Delta
So is
smelt.
what everybody else is.
Like, it is dizzying, and we're still like, I still have a bag packed in case something happens and I gotta leave.
Yeah, the wind's gonna get
like
worse
we're
today.
in the middle of the crisis. We might be we're at the beginning of the crisis on a grand sense, and I think we all know that. But just in this one, it's completely dizzying. And we do a news show, a news comedy show, but a news show where we're trying to say, like, this is the fact. This is what you can show this to your conservative uncle.
Right.
Here's the verifiable document that says that
Here's
the
a letter,
budget
here's
did this or
this.
that. And it's very hard that we can't do that in the middle of a crisis.
because there are also like a lot of conflicting primary sources too, and the details of it. It's like, okay, this happened, but then like they saved it for this, but then there's also this letter from the fire chief about how like we need more people, right? And is that there's it's
Well,
so hard
so
to-
I think it's very tempting in the midst of a situation like this, with emotions running high and stress and people stuck inside again with their phones, updating and looking for information. It's very, very tempting
to do what?
to
I'll do it.
want to place blame on somebody or
Yes.
something. And
do it.
to get all worked up. But you don't have the answers. you're probably going to end up looking foolish down the line. Not foolish, I'm sorry, that's too far.
Sure.
I mean,
I'm okay with that.
you can
What's
regret.
new?
I feel deep shame when I've shared something that turns out to be not accurate, which is why I have trained myself to stop using social media like that. I do not want to be responsible for
Amidst the
saying
thing.
something that turns out with later information to not be completely accurate. And we're so quick to reshare the same stuff. And so then it spreads like wildfire, and it's not helpful. There are absolutely things that can and need to be addressed. Very difficult to assess what those are in the midst of the crisis. But yeah, there are so many conversations to be had.
That is one of the things, Twitter is always a problem, and even at its best, it still had misinformation. But, you could at some point, you found the sources you could trust, and there were names that you could trust, and there was enough real-time fact-checking that it was kind of useful. It's not that anymore. And, Facebook's never been fantastic at that, and that's only going to get worse now. And I'm on Blue Sky now, but that doesn't really do that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, whatever it
Blue
is.
Ski now. No, it's Blue Sky.
Yeah.
I'm just trying out Blue Ski.
That's good. I'm gonna go with that. It works. But it doesn't do that. That's not what it does. So it's like it is the one tiny benefit that you could have found in social media is no longer there. When I first got on Twitter was right when COVID was starting to break. And it was really helpful for me because I was like following these accounts of doctors in China and Iran and Italy. And I was seeing firsthand accounts by people I knew I could trust and be able to communicate with them directly. And that was actually the one thing about it that kind of got me into social media. Before that, I really wasn't that into it. And it kind of helped. And now that's gone. Now that's I just don't see that being an option at all. I don't think it'll come back really in any meaningful way, but who knows? But it's not there right now, and we need it more than ever because now the misinformation is getting worse. There's AI pictures of the Palisade fires, and is that a big deal? I don't know. Picture of fire is still a picture of a fire, but it's just a part of a bigger problem that we can't.
Big time, especially since there is less and less trust in traditional media, as there should be. And people are trying to source information from other avenues, and there's so much that's just bullshit. And Palisades, there's AI videos of the flames coming up, licking over to the Hollywood sign in the midst of all this. That's sowing panic.
Yeah, it's malicious. It's
malicious.
It's trying, there's obviously, people are victims of misinformation and, you've got your bubbles and so on. But there are just people out there who are like, yeah, I'm just going to lie. I'll get engagement from lying. I'll make a fake video. I'll get the likes, and then maybe I'll get $100 from Elon every month or whatever. And it's just this there's so many. I assume this is true of Facebook too. I haven't been on there so long. But it's just these built-in incentives to be malicious with your information now. And before, it happened before, obviously, but now it's like, no, that's part of the model is to do that now. And it's just it's impossible. Even like Blue Skies, you can find
Blue
people.
Sorry,
I can't support that.
I'll stop trying to make it happen.
You can still do it, but I will not be participating until I do, and then
it makes more sense for the skeet thing.
Well, I don't call them that. I call them tweets.
Yeah. I call them
on Blue Sky. They're called tweets. And you can find people there, but it doesn't have not the community notes is a great service, but they don't have anything sort of built in to do that, and it's I don't know.
This is a bit of a digression. I'll make it quick. Here's what Facebook is like these days. On Facebook, I am in a a page, whatever it is.
I don't even know what they're called anymore. Yeah,
called "I Grew Up in Irvine." Because I did. Irvine, California, in Orange County. And it's people sharing photos of, this is what Heritage Park looked like in the 1970s.
Yeah.
Remember Northwood Pizza? That kind of stuff. But there was a post on the I Grew Up in Irvine page, which was clearly not a bot, but a scam of a t-shirt. I grew up in Irvine in 1960 whatever, and it was a shirt, and it was pretending to be a person saying buy these shirts, right, to get people to click and then buy the stupid shirts that are scam shirts, whatever. The first comment on that post, this scam post, was a person being, used to be great until the Asians took over.
Oh.
And then below that were bots being like, your presence is charming and witty. And then below that, and I mean, like racists and bots talking to each other.
That's it. That's all it is. Everything is now.
The moderation has got to have to be so. If anybody cares about their groups, that has to be so on point.
That's
Kave's
wild.
got
I will
something.
say there is still one section of Facebook that is decent and whole. And you guys don't know this yet because I'm older, but I realized I had reached middle age when I realized how much Costco meant to me and how much I like to smoke meats. And so there are these wonderful smoked meat like groups on Facebook.
Yeah.
It's like
That's where the real
talking
ones
about
are.
smoking meats, and it is a very wholesome place. Very little, but outside of that, terrible.
So
I agree.
far.
Outside
Find
of that,
your
Watch
Just
out,
copy.
watch out,
Good
Kaveh,
public. Yeah.
until they start
Well,
complaining about Asians in the smoked meat
Yeah.
community.
It's dead internet stuff. Like, that's where it is Facebook.
I was off of Facebook, or I didn't officially delete it, but didn't use it until I moved to the mountains. And it is a weird hub for all information. A lot of places just have their Facebook page instead of a website. And if you want to hear what's going on, but it sucked me back in. But there are just so many weird niche groups that seem to be thriving. But the only way that the groups here work is by content moderation and by everybody saying, stop arguing. There seems to be some understanding of like, none of that anymore. Deleting those comments, deleting that. But it's
That's
like
Big Brother
It's like a
taking over.
full-time job for people, honestly. It
Oh yeah,
seems
to
like
keep
they're
out the
like, "We're
racists and the
overloaded."
bots, it's too much. And it's gonna get worse. Like, Jonathan, you're talking about the dead internet.
This is a digression.
It is in our episode, but like, hey, we're not gonna have an episode next week. So in our recent episode about AI, we talk about this fake social app that is it's like social AI, and it's like you make an account and everyone you interact with is fake, and you can pick your audience. Are they fans? Are they skeptics? They're all fake. It's just an app for you and bots. And that person was hired by Meta to work on their AI integration. And then like literally a week ago, like 4 days before we aired the episode, there were all these bot accounts on, I think it was Threads, that were just fake people, and like proudly, like they're like, we're rolling out this like new thing where like you have these like bot characters that you can interact with, and then you have bots replying to those bots, and then people got upset and like they removed them briefly. That is going to happen. They will be less obvious soon. But it's just everything now, and it's just bad. But this is
That's
such
awesome.
a digression. But
It's
like,
not though,
God.
but you know
Yeah.
what? Like, it is. We talk a lot about like misinformation in the internet and how social media sucks now, but it is the information environment that impacts everything. The president figures out what he believes and
Right.
is influenced by the stuff on his weird like
Truth Social
corner of
right?
the internet,
Yeah.
and it is a corner. Like, we would love to not talk about this, I think, but it just keeps. It's
yeah,
going
because that's
to
the other thing too. We would love to not talk about it, but like there's this aspect of websites of these social media sites that have gotten so much worse. And I do not fully blame Elon, but he is a huge part of it. And he is leading the charge with obviously like a lot of the bot stuff and the community notes and the incentives, the verification incentive to like just post whatever and get engagement. We'll give you money, that kind of stuff. But also banning links to other places. And
Yes.
forcing people to post onto the actual site, like your articles, your videos, everything has to go there. Social media, not that long ago, used to be a hub that was a portal to everywhere on the internet. You can go there and it brings you here, brings you there, brings you there. And you always go back to the site because you have your feed and your friends and everybody and your sources of information, but it goes other places. But now every social media site wants to be the place that you do everything. You have your
Right.
page here, you have your website there, you have your videos there, you have your articles there. And that creates even more of these like little bubbles where you're cultivating, here's my Twitter like body of work, or X or whatever. And so it's just like all these things making everything worse, where like you can't even have websites now. You can't write an article and post it here because they make you upload it there. And so you have all these other incentives feeding into your page instead of I don't know. It's just very frustrating to see. Instead of being a portal and hub to everywhere on the internet, it's like, no, actually, this is the one place you go to.
Right.
This is it's the everything app of it all.
App.
It sucks. And it's like evil in a way, and it's damaging in a lot of ways. And I hate him so much for infecting every other social media site like that.
Yeah, for sure. And this is separate, slightly, goes in the same conversation. I don't know what the answer to this is.
More bots.
Because news sites have to pay their journalists and their people, but it is also galling that when you do go to most news sites, you're behind a paywall. And so when people are putting in the work to try to get more, bringing it back to the fires, talks about people trying to get information, accurate information about fires, and they're stuck behind a paywall. And you're like, well, this is a fucking emergency.
It's all a mess. It's a mess.
I remember thinking about that a lot during COVID too. And again, I don't have a specific solution to it, but all of these different elements compound the problem, in my opinion, because obviously they need to make money somehow, and in order to pay their staff to run the site. And it is at a detriment to actually getting information out, especially when the social media platforms are just such garbage.
My goodness. Every day we have to survive and cook and shop and clean and watch the movie Changing Lanes over and over and over again. It's hard, you know? But what choice do we have? Well, listen, I want to tell you about Hungry Root. They make eating healthier a little bit easier by doing the shopping for you. They will send you fresh and high-quality groceries, as well as vitamins and even recipes right to your door. No more pausing the 2002 Ben Affleck and Samuel L. Jackson thriller to run to the store. No way. Hungry Root will get to know your personal health goals and dietary needs and make you a personalized but customizable grocery cart. Everything a grocery store has, like meat and produce and seafood and sweets, even vitamins. I love it. I do. I love having my own personal shopper, like in that movie. What's the movie? What is the movie? Oh, Personal Shopper. My life is just like that movie with all the ghosts. Also, Changing Lanes. 2 movies. I like to cook at home, so it's nice not to have to go to the store beforehand and keep my energy for other things like watching those 2 movies and cooking at home. And right now, Hungry Root is offering some more news listeners and watchers 40% off your first delivery and free veggies for life of the subscription. So just go to hungryroot.com/more news to get 40% off your first delivery and get those free veggies. That's hungryroot.com/more news. Don't forget to use our link so that they know we sent you. Not other people's links, ours. Thanks.
Speaking of misinformation and information, do we want to talk about medicine, since we got you here
Yes, we do.
today to
Jonathan?
Jonathan, if you could answer our questions for us, please. Kaveh, you have many questions for Jonathan about
I do.
medicine, right?
But also, Kaveh, you had thoughts about the air stuff and fires too. So give us your expertise.
I will weigh in a little bit on that. I think this is mostly obvious, but aside from the actual risk of fire and burning and that, and unfortunately, I'm sure that the number of people who die from these fires is going to go up. But it's not even just that. It's really the air quality is a problem. You have these shrubs, you have these trees, and you have these plants mixing with fires and from man-made things which may contain toxic chemicals, and that's going to be out in the air, and that can travel like hundreds of miles.
Oh, it's going to
winds
be
carry, and it can last for maybe a couple of weeks in there, and there's a real danger to people and really to everyone, but in particular like kids, elderly, people with immunocompromised, pregnant women. It's really concerning. And LA in particular has already terrible ozone pollution. I don't know if you guys are familiar with ozone is, when it's high in the sky and the atmosphere, helps protect us. But when it's on here on the ground level and it can harm people's lungs. It's, when you have like these toxic things like nitrogen oxide and volatile organic compounds that are reacting in the sunlight and the hot temperatures, you inhale it sort of like sunburn for your lungs is how a pulmonologist might describe it. And so at baseline, LA is not amazing for air quality. And then on top of that, this is happening. That really concerns me. I would put a plug in there. One, to not use rectal ozone. That's a totally different topic. Gwyneth, I hope you're listening. But two, for regular people, in terms of ozone stuff and what's happening with ozone pollution and now with the fires, with these fires happening, if you have access to an N95 mask, and if you can wear that when you're around, it's probably a good idea, particularly if you're in that group of people, elderly, or if you have any immunocompromised. So I would consider doing that. And again, maybe even keep it going for a week or so, at least after the fires are hopefully contained. So that is a real concern I have about what's happening there. And for pulmonology's like issues that are going to come down the road from this.
Yeah.
But that is also more or less going to be true for most fires too. So if you have N95s left over from COVID, it's a good time to maybe break them out.
When can I take my son, who is almost 2, to a playground outside again? Because keeping him inside for a day of play and energy expenditure is not
terrible for everybody.
Easy to do. Terrible for everybody, particularly a few people.
I mean,
I meant everybody in the house.
A few very specific people. Yeah.
What specific person?
House.
It's
Which
a good
I
question.
love, by the way.
Yeah.
I love how it's terrible for me, but
I love how terrible this is.
Yeah, it's awesome, and I don't want it to change. But if I did, what would I do?
Well, because he can't wear an N95 mask. He has little lungs, but he needs to like be outside and climb stuff and run and all those things. And I keep checking the air quality on my weather app on my phone, and it gives me a number, and then it tells me what that number means. It goes 300 hazardous, 86 moderate. Okay, moderate, but is that not? I should.
That doesn't
wait
sound
till
good. Yeah,
it's not good.
But moderate, you're probably having more days that are moderate than you know. And you're not checking.
That's
So
that's
never.
the point right there.
He has to live in room. Then is what you're saying. Is I have to keep my son in room.
There's always going to be a small amount of risk, with a fire in the air, but it's pretty low. I think for short periods of time, you should still try to get out there. If he has got no underlying lung issues or asthma or bronchitis or anything like that, I think he's still probably better served by getting some time out and playing and doing that. I would try to limit it maybe for the next week. I wouldn't do prolonged periods of time when you're out there. But you do have to balance that with him being like a normal kid and getting his energy out. So I think a little bit of time out there is probably not going to harm him. I wouldn't spend hours at any point if you can help it. And if you have HEPA filters at home, obviously that's fantastic. Those are hard to get in a fire setting. They become unobtainable at your Targets and Walmarts and that sort of thing. But you can also make them at home. They have like a lot of do-it-yourself, people have done that and actually show that it works okay. So you can also do that as well if you need to.
I also heard that a humidifier is going to be good because it weighs down the particulate in the air, like it makes it heavy and brings it down lower, but I'm not sure if that's true. Also, kids are lower to the ground. So that seems like maybe a bad idea.
I've heard that about humidifiers as well, and there's a lot of theories about COVID traveling a little bit differently in different climates and temperatures. I don't know how well that's been proven. I wouldn't worry about that too much. An air purifier is probably the best way to go.
Jonathan, let's give Kaveh the questions you prepared for him.
So we're going to skip Kaveh's questions for Jonathan that he has.
Oh yeah,
sure.
We're
Fine.
skipping right over.
Let's
Okay.
skip my questions for Jonathan.
Okay.
I mean, if there's anything you want to know about Bob Dylan or football, I can answer them. Okay.
Or toddlers locked inside.
So,
I know about that one.
the last time
the football, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, let's abandon.
Yeah,
this
sorry.
stuff again.
Yeah.
The last time you were on the show, we talked about the rising rates of lower body cancers in young people, or relatively young people, as in under 50. And last month, a new study was released that suggested that one of the culprits could be excess seed oils that are used in ultra-processed foods. I'm guessing this means like safflower oil or sunflower oil, but maybe not.
What they call the hateful eight. What people have been calling the hateful eight is like those oils. Yeah,
but
canola oil,
this potential cause didn't really come up the last time you were here. So this was the inspiration initially behind you.
So the cause is that seed oils are causing cancers, is what this theory is.
Yes.
Correct. Okay, I'm so glad. Okay, I'm happy to talk about this. Thank you for throwing something to me. By the way, I should be your fire guy. I don't know why I wouldn't be your fire guy, but I'm also here to talk about this. So
our doctor is fire guy.
We can add you to the fire guy. It's okay.
So, like a lot of things that revolve around medical misinformation online, how it starts with is like there's a small study and it shows something kind of interesting, a little interesting, and then it gets extrapolated to something far bigger and different than it was intended to be. So let's take a step back. First of all, colon cancer rates are going up in younger people, but it's still a pretty small number. I mean, because the number to begin with was very small. The percentage has increased, but it's a small still number overall. So I don't want everyone who's under 40 freaking out that they have colon cancer. It's not the case. But there was this study, and it was in the GI journal Gut, which is
Hell yeah.
Yeah. It's
Awesome.
a British medical journal.
Nice.
The
Perfect.
BM.
Love it.
Jay, you like
That's
that?
right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I do.
And so it did come out, and it was a really sort of dense, specific study. It was very hard to read. And it was like really molecular analysis of lipidomics, like looking at lipids. And
Let me
looking
take
at-
it from here, actually. So, sorry. Please continue.
And this okay. Here, let me pull up the title so I can read to you the title of the original paper, and then we can maybe talk about how that was translated. So the original article was titled "Integration of Lipidomics with Targeted Single-Cell and Spatial Transcriptomics Defines an Unresolved Pro-Inflammatory State in Colon Cancer." You know, typical stuff
I
that
was gonna
most
say, yeah.
young 20-year-olds have tattooed on their body. It's like this, and then it got translated into like seed oils cause colorectal cancer. It wasn't, by the way, it wasn't even, junk journals that did that. Scientific American did that. I mean, really emphasizing the American in Scientific American, but they went that way with it. And the truth of it is, it's kind of an interesting study. I won't go into the super nitty gritty of it. I'll probably do an episode on my show where I go into a little more detail, but I don't want to bother all your listeners with if they don't want to hear. But the long and the short of it is that like it kind of raised some interesting questions, but using a lot of methods that aren't necessarily proven. There was no real looking at whether or not seed oils were involved at all. It was kind of like there's this one thing that's kind of related to seed oils, and that one thing might be kind of related to what we're seeing in these cancer cells, but there's no way to make connections between all these things. So could seed oils potentially be causing colon cancer? It's possible. I don't think it is, but it's possible. This study and all the hubbub around it certainly doesn't show it. And that's not what this was meant to do. This study was basically meant to like raise some questions and be like, okay, where are some studies we could go from here? And that's like 15, 20 studies away from saying seed oils, which are often used in processed foods, which I'm a fan of processed foods for a lot of different reasons. But it's a long way to go from there to seed oils cause colon cancer. But it's a good example of how that works. Someone takes like a little tiny kernel of something that could be true, and they make it much more exciting. And to be honest, it's not just the journalists that did this and the wellness influencers who'd love to go after seed oils. It's also like the author of the paper kind of was in a weird way like saying, yeah, maybe their seed oils are related. We should limit them. And I don't know if he got trapped into that in the interview where that was quoted in the Scientific American that kind of prompted all this. I don't know how that happened, but that was, I think, a mistake. And I don't think, I'm sure if we had a chance to discuss it with that author, they probably would walk that back because it really doesn't make a lot of sense scientifically to say that.
Right, to come out, like, not often.
Yeah.
They come out and like, oh, from this paper, we need to ban these things. Like, that's not
right.
super common.
Yeah, maybe I could ask him to come on.
No, well, we're
Get
going to
on,
be the
get
guests
on.
on that episode.
Exactly.
The
I
I mean,
experts.
Jonathan,
You
you're
don't
the
need
guy
to-
I'm tapping for that
You don't
one.
need to have
We'll have them on,
Jonathan
and they will
this
ask us the
person.
questions.
Right.
Yeah,
head to head.
as they do.
So the answer is no. Yeah, not to worry. Not to worry. I will say this. I'm not saying that dietary changes, stuff that we're eating isn't related to colon cancer. It very well could be. We think diet and environment are big factors in what caused colon cancer, but this paper isn't showing it.
So raw milk only going forward is what you're
Just
saying.
like don't eat anything.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of bird flu, which is, I assume, what you want to talk about next, raw milk, the rawer the better. In fact, you know what? Just get it straight from the teat, you cowards. Just go straight, get right up under there.
Well, I do want to ask about bird flu, and I have a series of bullet points here that I wrote out because I think I understand where we are right now, and I want you to tell me if I'm wrong about this stuff. It's not a game.
I will never
We're
tell
not
you
doing a
you're
game.
wrong because I love you too much, Jonathan. But
You'll say that's
well,
not right.
if you love him,
or
you'll make it.
You
clear
could be
that he's
more
wrong.
right.
You can be, okay.
You could be more right. It's
I could
such
definitely
be more
a
right.
woke ass way to say it.
So, okay, here are my bullet points. Bird flu kills about half of all the humans it infects, but it's only infected people so far who have a lot of contact with poultry. It could mutate to go person to person, but it hasn't yet, but it could. And we have a vaccine for H5N1, but we don't have hundreds of millions of doses if we needed to inoculate everyone, and we're not really making them right now because we don't think we'll need them.
that's not bad.
Yes.
Not bad. There's a couple things we could talk about a little bit more. One, you are right that scientists have been really worried about the bird flu because in the past, it's killed about 450 people, I think, since 2003, since this sort of variation, since we started been following a little bit better. And this, it's a little different. This is the first death here in the U.S. It unfortunately won't be the last. The most cases, thankfully, have been pretty mild. Here, they've been mostly conjunctivitis or pink eye. There's been some respiratory symptoms. And a big part of that is, like you're saying, it has, the way we're getting infected isn't as bad as the way people were infected in the past. So in the past, in these wet markets, the thought was that people are really plucking out the feathers of the fish as aerosolized. It's getting deep into the lungs, and that's where it was really affecting people. The people now, mostly where they're getting it from is, contact with dead animals and cows and that sort of
RFK.
We got to talk about that guy for a while. I have an issue or two with him.
Have him on the show.
He won't return my calls. It's because of something with his wife.
Coward.
It's a long story. I said something about Curb Your Enthusiasm once on the show. It's overrated, and I don't like cringe humor, something like that. Anyways, who remembers these
You
things?
can't be saying stuff like that.
Yeah. So there is a difference in the way that these people are now getting it, now being exposed to it. It could very well mutate into a problem that is now much more transmissible from person to person. Once that happens, and that can happen, that's not too hard to imagine it happening. If someone is infected with the influenza, the regular flu, what we call the flu, and they get this, those viruses are going to get into your cells, and when you're in your cells, they're going to recombinate. They're going to mix together, and they could create the kind of virus that allows it to be more easily transmissible from person to person. And right now, we're lucky because the receptors that it's attaching to aren't causing the same sort of problems, but that could change very easily. And even that being said, even if it stays the way it is, unfortunately, it could create still some very serious issues, and we could still see some more deaths because of it. But that is sort of the issue, and we don't have a good vaccine for it, unfortunately, because we don't know how that's gonna, when it becomes that, we don't know what that's going to look like.
Because there is it was my understanding that there was a vaccine, but what it would become when it is able to go person to person, it would be so far away from
That's right.
what we have the vaccine for. Okay.
That's right. I do recommend getting your flu vaccine, though. It's another good reason to get your flu vaccine, because you don't want, if you get really sick and you have a lot of flu in your body and you got a lot of virus replicating, and then you get the bird flu, we're going to be creating a great situation for that virus to become a real bad one and a real problem. And having something like that in an RFK Jr.-led healthcare system is going to be a fucking nightmare. It'll be so bad.
It is really hard to wrap the mind around all the potential horrific outcomes, but No
Yeah,
other
that's-
words.
So,
but was the end of
given-
the sentence.
But
So, given the amount of pants shitting fear you have instilled in us, is it still okay to drink, unlike what the Surgeon General
Drink
says?
what?
alcohol.
Question
Oh,
number 3.
better be.
Because real quick, because I thought for a second you were going to say is it okay to drink raw milk. To
No,
which
no,
I
no,
would
no,
say,
no.
I know. I was
Alcohol.
like,
don't you fucking do that, because it probably, we haven't actually seen the bird flu get into people through food, but if you're cooking it and you're pasteurizing it, you're pretty safe. If you're not doing those things, if you're not cooking your foods, I mean, it's potentially there as an issue. So it's another good reason among many good reasons to pasteurize your milk and not drink raw milk. But what you're referring to
is the
very
alcohol study.
astutely, the Surgeon General's new advisory on putting like cancer risk on like alcohol. It is a cancer risk. It is a real thing, and that is a real concern. It's not totally shocking. I overall, this is.
But what
this
about
is-
red wine being good for my heart?
Yeah, we kind
I
of
don't
go back
even
and
like
forth
red
on
wine.
that, don't we? We
Every day.
You know, the pendulum goes back and forth on alcohol, and it sometimes it's like, well, if you do it here, it's good for you, and then it'll be like it's terrible. Right now, we're at this like generally there's no quote unquote safe level of alcohol. I mean, for most people, if they have it within moderation, not an issue, you know. But we can't technically say, as I don't technically say, there's ever a safe amount or good amount of alcohol. That being said, I think, you know, occasional use, I drink still occasionally in moderation. I try, you know, and I think that's still a small risk that I'm willing to take, because I think it's a relatively small risk if it's done appropriately. There's associations with alcohol and all kinds of cancers, GI related cancers in particular that I deal with, liver cancers, all the stuff you might imagine.
Sure.
This is a new discussion amongst doctors, and I can't speak to how other people will address this, but for me personally, I think it's a good thing overall. I do worry a little bit that like if we make everything terrifying, then nothing's terrifying, and there is a little bit of like, you know, warning fatigue that people can get. But I think it's probably good to discuss, and people need to know, because alcohol is a real issue. We did this with smoking, and I think that makes perfect sense because the risk is higher. The number of people that are going to get cancer because of smoking, the risk of it's so much higher. I think it makes a lot more sense. This one, I think there's an argument to be made, but I think overall I do agree with it. I don't agree with everything the Surgeon General has done.
Yeah.
I actually got in trouble because I walked out of one of his talks he was giving here in the city, and it became a thing because it's like a stupid thing. Anyways, so
Anything?
I'll tell you. I can tell you the story if you guys want to hear
sorry.
it. I can make it real quick, but I want to hear what Katie had to say about
Well,
this.
I want to hear that story, and I've got several thoughts. I basically I'm agreeing with you about this delicate balance. I do know that specifically liver disease, liver cirrhosis, can lead to liver cancer specifically. And cirrhosis is you can develop hepatitis, you can damage your liver in a variety of ways, but it's mostly linked to excessive alcohol drinking. So that shouldn't be a surprise. Not mostly, but
Yeah, it's a real significant factor in developing cirrhosis,
Yeah.
which is complete scarring of the liver.
Yeah.
And when you have cirrhosis from anything, it can lead to cancer of
To
the
cancer,
liver.
but
and you're
one
right,
of the
alcohol
ways
is a major
to get
risk.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Very,
in
very true.
general, I think part of what I agree with, like if you put a label on everything, then it dilutes it. Obviously, cancer from cigarettes is a very well-known and documented risk, and I think it's important. It's changed our conversation about tobacco, and maybe it is time to have a change conversation about alcohol. And I have a feeling that there are more and more things that we're going to find out might cause cancer and things that we're ingesting. So that to me, there's a delicate balance. I do not advocate for people abusing substances, but if that is your glass of wine at the end of the day is the relief that you get and you enjoy it, or socializing with your friends, you know, once a month, you know, I don't want people to carry around a level of fear when truly I have no idea what are the things that I'm consuming on a daily basis. I love an instant ramen. It's got to be some cancer in that,
Oh,
you know?
it's worth it.
Yeah, and you're always
it's
drinking
worth
like
it.
raw milk and stuff, and like we just don't know. We
What
just
if it's
don't know.
yogurt
You LA
and
types.
pomegranates, or what's the dessert?
Yeah,
that you
pomegranate
may-
seeds. We're gonna. Yeah, it's not just a dessert, but it is a very tasty snack that sometimes substitutes as a dessert. And yes, it
You're
involves
talking to an
pomegranate
Iranian
seeds.
guy, but that's like I grew up on that stuff. That's
Fucking
good for you.
delicious.
Eat that stuff. Have more.
Until you tell me it's going to give me cancer.
I'm not going to. It's good.
Yeah.
Antioxidant.
Even if it
It's good.
does, don't.
Even if it does, just muscle through.
There's a new study called integration of pomegranate lipidosis, and it like goes really deep into it. But
I wrote
love
that.
each
Thank you
other.
so
I'm
much for
obsessed
reading.
with pomegranates. I'm just going to do a digression quickly. Like when you
Please.
crack
You want me to tell you
open
how
a
to cut them? Do
pomegranate,
you guys know how to cut them correctly?
You score it into pieces, right?
I
And
mean,
then
there's
break
so
it
many different
open?
ways to do this. My favorite way is you got to take it from the top, and it kind of is like a pentagonal type shape. And so you carve along that until you find the heaviest rind pieces, and I cut along those. So that's the way I do it, and I'm correct. So I think
Okay, I'm
most
gonna do
people
Kaveh's
should
version.
try it that way. Yeah.
But like, I get so obsessed getting each and every little jewel. I'm like, hello,
Yeah.
my little jewels.
Yeah.
Getting them
They're
out.
so they're
And then I'm
beautiful.
stained in red, and it's like a bloodbath.
so you get stained in red, and it's a bloodbath, and you cut it in a pentagonal shape. This is the most like demonic
It's a ritual.
fruit.
Yeah, it is.
You're
That's
telling
what
me
makes it
doesn't
so
cause
rad.
cancer.
Yeah.
Wait, Kaveh,
Yeah.
tell us about pissing off the Surgeon General.
I don't
Did you
know
get
if I
a
pissed him off. Okay, so first of all, I have to say he seems like a very nice guy, Vivek Murthy. He seems like a very nice guy, and we have some mutual friends, so I have like nothing particularly bad to say about him. You know, my family actually invited me to this city arts and lectures here in San Francisco, where they have like someone of note come in and he's interviewed by someone else, and people just stand around asking questions. This was, about 6 months ago. Or maybe a little bit more, and the Gaza stuff was really on people's minds. It was becoming really clear that hospitals were being targeted, and there were a lot of people who had questions for anyone in the medical field, particularly someone of note who is, America's top doctor about it. And so we're in this lecture, he's talking about the epidemic of loneliness, which is like real, but I'm also like, we also have a real pandemic. That is not just loneliness, which is a really important thing. I agree. I'm not saying it's not. It is. But I'm like, there's also
But it also
other
is
things
a little bit weaponized at times. Like, what about people being lonely? Like, okay, well,
Right.
just take care of each other and stay home and talk online for now. Anyway, keep going.
Exactly agree. It was a little bit like I had a hard time with it. And he's, again, nice guy, real nice guy. But like he did this part where he was like, where else in this wonderful country could a son of an immigrant rise to a field such as this? It's just impossible. And I was thinking in my head, I was like, I mean, your dad was a doctor. I mean, my dad was a doctor and an immigrant, and it was a lot easier because of the doctor part.
Right.
I was kind of like the picture, like it was being painted at, and there's part of me that didn't like that. And especially because I, had a very similar story, and I would feel kind of weird about painting it that way.
Right.
And then people started to get up in the crowd. It was clearly this organized like thing that went in phases, where like people stood up and they were like, Dr. Murthy, why aren't you talking about what's happening in Gaza right now? And he was like, we'll talk about it at the end of the show. And they got escorted out, and they did it like in 2 or 3 waves. And I was kind of like, I kind of want to hear his answer. I mean, like the fact that he was like, we'll talk about it at the end when people ask questions. I was like, I have a feeling you're not going to give a very satisfactory answer because of that. I was like, why not? Why not address it right then? He could even say, look, I don't think it's my position to weigh in on that. I'm sorry. But why not address it at least,
You're silencing it
Instead
in
of
a
like,
way.
be like,
It's
we'll
not-
get to it at the end, which like maybe not actually.
Right. And I didn't get the sense that there would be any convincing answer for that, And it was about the 3rd time when someone got removed that I looked around, and the audience was just like super homogeneous, like white, like looking at anger at these like young people who I thought were doing something pretty brave. And by the way, were like that had that whole multicultural coalition thing that, I always kind of dig. And I was like comparing like the people I saw being escorted out, and they weren't being overly rude, but they were asking the question. And the people, just I look back in the audience, just looking at them with, daggers for eyes and anger and like booing at them and trying to grab their signs from them. And I was like, I think I'd rather be with those people. And so
Good for you.
when they got kicked out, I was like, all right, I got to go too. And I walked out too. I didn't make a scene. I didn't mean to create a thing, but I walked out as well. The guy hosting the thing, who was like, I get it, trying to put on a good show, made some comment about it after I left.
As you were leaving?
After I left. I think if I heard it, I probably would have stopped.
Did he call out your name? Did he know who you were?
No, I hope not. I mean, it was posted later, and it might have gotten to him. But and there were a lot of people who were mad about it, and they said, it's not his position. You shouldn't have done that. It was rude. Whatever. It's not totally incorrect, and I didn't do it to make a political statement, but it was more just like I didn't want to be a part of what I saw. I just didn't like that.
I think that makes perfect sense.
Separate yourself from that.
Yeah,
It's
I wanted
frustrating
to not be
sit
there.
there and watch it happen over and over again.
Yeah.
It's like, well, this is actually, I don't think
not
you
something
should've
you wanted to
gotten
be
in trouble.
a part of or participate in. And
You might have gotten in trouble
if you
there,
felt
but you
more
got a gold
solidarity with the
star.
people who kept getting kicked out. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was that. So I was actually getting back to the original thing. I was actually, when I saw he wrote this, I was like, all right, now we're talking. Now we're doing something. This is like, we're having a real, like, something's going on here. Okay. So for that, I give him credit, because it's not a very popular thing to do. It's going to make him the target of a lot of people. I'm sure there's an alcohol lobby out there that's going to go against him. So I'll give him credit for this. And I think it was, I think it was kind of neat to see him do that sort of thing.
But I'm still going to drink a little bit and eat my ramen.
Yeah, me too.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm not saying don't ever. I'm not even, as a gastroenterologist, people think I say you can't put anything up your butts. I just say don't put things that aren't flared. Don't put things in there that aren't meant to
Keep the
be there.
unflared
Facebook.
out of there.
Speaking of
Keep the
Facebook,
unflared out of there.
One of
Yeah.
the
catchy.
Derriere. There's something
Facebook
better.
groups here is the incident report thing, and there's people that like listen to scanners and report it. So helpful only if there is a specific kind of emergency where there's information sharing. Other times it's like nobody's names, it's private. It's not like. But a couple weeks ago, New Year's.
Uh-oh. Oh, what's
I guess somebody
happening
got something stuck up their butt on New Year's Eve, but they didn't call.
where I come in.
I
for,
think
like,
it's safe to say
wait.
somebody's got things stuff.
Yeah, somebody.
Years.
But they didn't call the ambulance for like 3 or 4 days.
Oh no!
I
You
know.
got to get that out of there.
And it was all over the feed. But I'm sorry, but I had to. You said
No,
I'm not
it's my
opposed to
life.
Something.
I'm glad my life amuses you.
And
glad my calling,
Hopefully this
my
person was
profession.
fine. I just couldn't imagine waiting so many days. You got
a long
something
time.
stuck. Get
So
it
tough.
out. Get it out.
There's I'll tell you this. So when I first started my podcast, and I had a co-host back then, they wanted to do this little bit, and they even had a name for it, and where we talk about like foreign objects and people's butts, and I'm not gonna lie, it's entertaining. It's like, it's kind of fun, but at the end of the day, for me, is like, the reason they come in so late, and the reason is it's like their worst day of their life.
It
And
is.
it's just so terrible and
It's
embarrassing.
and you don't want to have that
Exactly.
conversation.
And I couldn't do it anymore. I was like, I have
Yeah,
to.
it's scary and embarrassing.
Exactly.
And those are two big reasons people don't go to the doctor. Yeah.
Exactly right. And I was like, I can't really be a part of that anymore. But yeah, these poor people.
That's responsible.
I
I'll tell
feel bad
you,
for mentioning it.
No.
I'm so glad they got help.
Damn. It's a good time, because I'll tell you the problem, the cases you see of that is guys. It's not homosexuals. It's people who just want to experiment and have fun, which, God bless them, but they don't know what to do, and they're too afraid to ask. So all I'm saying is there are specifically things made for that. If you're interested, get the right stuff. Don't put things that aren't meant to be there in there. Get things that are meant to be in there, then have a blast.
There are lots of things that are meant to
There's
be in there.
plenty of them.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Flared.
Well, we need to wrap this up so that we can get it edited by tomorrow. Dear audience, I have to acknowledge that there are a lot of things that have happened in the last few weeks that we did intend to talk about, but I've loved our conversation today. Explosions,
Can't get to everything.
Tesla
Yeah.
trucks, Gulf of America.
ChatGPT designed acts of terror.
H-1B visas.
H-1B
the amount of
visas,
water.
V1 visas. Every single report about how old and incapable President Joe Biden was since 2020.
Yeah.
So many
Greenland.
stories. Oh my gosh.
But I do think that I don't think it's going to slow down. So we'll be talking about a lot of stuff. We've got a hodgepodge we're going to do to cover some of this. Anyway, we're going to get to it is the point.
But there's just a lot. What are you going to do?
Yeah, I don't know why I'm getting
Stay
aggressive now.
tuned. Stay tuned is what you're
Kaveh,
saying.
I was so flustered as I dove back into the world of podcasting after a few weeks off. I didn't properly introduce you or shout out the fact that you have a wonderful podcast called House of Pod. But now's your chance to plug all the pluggables, please.
Yeah, thank you. You guys did a bang up job. There's a lot of stuff happening, so I don't mind that you didn't mention it. It is a podcast that I do. You can find it anywhere. It's relatively informal, and we look at health topics, and we look where it intersects with, the popular culture, the news. I'll have like a musician on, and then I'll have like a world-leading expert in the medical field on, and we'll talk about something together. So there's a little something for people in the world of medicine, but a lot for people who aren't and kind of want to peel back the curtain on the world of medicine. And we take a lot of aim at, medical quackery and grifters. So I think people who like your show will also enjoy it for that reason. And
They will.
And you might even hear one of these fine hosts and
Maybe.
producers on the show someday.
One day, finally.
When we're on to interview the Surgeon General.
Yeah, right. Sorry, Vivek.
He's still banned.
He's a nice
Banned from
guy.
this
No,
podcast.
Nice guy.
I'm sure he's a good guy.
Banned.
Good guy.
Banned.
All right, guys, we've done it. We've arrived at the end. I hope
happened?
you're all having as good of a New Year as you can. Starting out with a bang. There's something I always say, and I'm trying to remember what it was. It's been so long. Oh, that's right.
What?
We love you very much.
Much.
Cody, much.
I got there.
Anybody else want to say much?
Much.